What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G. Now, in case you end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So coming in at number 1, my first reason why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G is because it has NFC. Now, in case you don't know what it is, NFC is essentially the main technology behind contactless mobile payment services. So if you like to use tap and pay, to actually use that feature, your phone will need to have NFC. And on one hand, at this point in 2023, we're really a couple months away from 2024 at this point, and I'm at the point where I honestly expect pretty much any phone to have NFC, but unfortunately, even in this day and age, it's still really not the case. There are plenty of phones that are actually a lot more expensive than this that still don't have NFC for whatever reason, like for example, the Motorola Moto G Power 5G. That phone is a great mid-range phone, with the exception of, for some reason, Motorola thought it would be a good idea to leave out NFC, which really just makes no sense to me. I mean, in the US at least, there's pretty much no store besides maybe Walmart that doesn't have some kind of tap and pay. So I feel like nowadays, with the feature becoming so widely used, having the ability to use it in your smartphone is really an expectation. But luckily with the Cricket Magic 5G, again, this phone does have NFC, so if you do like to use tap and pay, then you'll be happy to know with this phone, you can use it no problem. Now, my second reason why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G is the processor. Now, on one hand, I will say the processor on this phone is definitely nothing new, but at the same time, just because it's not new doesn't mean it's not good. So with the Cricket Magic 5G, we are getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. So again, this processor is at least a couple years old. I honestly don't know when it was first released, but I have seen it used in all kinds of different phones. But to this day, it still is definitely good. With this device, despite not maybe having lightning fast performance or anything, it does get the job done for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music, and really just using your phone as a phone. Even if you want to do some light mobile gaming, for example, it will definitely get the job done. So overall, if you're not really looking for the fastest phone out there, but you still want something decently fast enough for basic daily activities, then with the Cricket Magic 5G, I do think you will get a good experience. Now, I ran a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then comparing your results to these, and that'll give you a better idea of where this phone stands performance-wise compared to your current device. Because of course, depending on what you're coming from, it may or may not actually be an upgrade. If you're coming from something a bit higher end, but maybe a bit older, like say a Samsung Galaxy S9 for example, performance-wise, this will be a pretty big downgrade. But if you're coming from maybe a lower end device, chances are, it might be a solid upgrade. But again, in my experience, if you really kind of know what to expect from an entry-level 5G phone, I do think you will get a good experience with this device. My third reason why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G is the larger display. Now, with this display, on one hand, when it comes to the overall image quality, it really isn't the best, but I mean, full price, this phone is going for like $139, so I was definitely not expecting a super high-end 1080p display or anything like that. So for what it is, I do think it does look at least decently good. But essentially, with the Cricket Magic 5G, we are getting a 6.6-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 286, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So aside from only having a 720p resolution, which again is to be expected in a phone like this, everything else is really good. With a 90Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a bit faster and smoother, making the phone feel a bit more premium to use. And at 6.6 inches with a 20:9 aspect ratio, the size and dimensions are great, so if you're doing something like browsing the web, using social media, reading, stuff like that, it will be plenty large enough to give you a good experience. So when it comes to that, I really have no complaints. So if you are looking for a really affordable phone and you're consuming a decent amount of content, but you're still not watching videos all day or doing something where you really need a high definition image for that kind of use, this phone will be perfectly fine for you. Now, my fourth reason why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G is the software. Now with this phone, we are getting Android 13, which unfortunately is not Android 14, but although I typically consider not having the best software support to be a bit of a drawback, the exception is when it comes to these really entry-level phones. I mean, I've seen phones that are actually a bit more expensive than this that only have Android 12. So considering that, sure, with this phone, you're not going to be getting any major updates. So again, unfortunately, no Android 12, but at the same time, I would definitely not call Android 13 outdated, and honestly, if you're not really that concerned about the software and you really just need something affordable that works, I do think it is going to be perfectly fine with this phone. Keep in mind, things on this phone do run really well. I mean, the system is pretty smooth and I haven't had any performance issues, so in general, I would say the software on this device is pretty good. And then finally, my fifth reason why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G is the photo quality from the main camera. Now, let me make one thing clear. I don't really think this is an amazing camera or anything, so if you are maybe constantly taking pictures for something like social media, you will want to spend a bit more and get something higher end, because the camera here is pretty featureless. But honestly, for a phone you can get for under $150, I do think the camera here is actually pretty good. So with the Cricket Magic 5G, up front, we got a 5 megapixel selfie camera, and on the back, we got a dual camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera. So in general, again, not the best camera setup, there are really no extra features. But first of all, keep in mind, for video, this phone can record up to 2K videos in both the rear and front cameras, which might not really sound significant, but when you consider there are lots of phones a lot more expensive than this that can only record in 1080p, it is a nice touch. And when it comes to the main photo quality, I did find this camera to actually be pretty good. Now, to give you an idea of what it can do, here's some pictures taken with the Cricket Magic 5G, and again, it's not really like it's amazing or anything, but if you are taking maybe the occasional Instagram photo every now and then, but you're still really not super concerned with the camera, then in that case, I do think it will get the job done just fine. So if you are looking for something super affordable like this, but you still want a halfway decent camera, then I would say this phone will be a pretty good choice. But those were 5 reasons why you should buy the Cricket Magic 5G. In general, despite being a relatively basic featureless device, I do think if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has decent performance, a decently large display, a nice camera, and features like NFC, then in that case, the Cricket Magic 5G is definitely worth considering. Now once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.